next up, we have a brilliant Web3 marketing strategist, Rachel Wilkins, who's also an NFT project advisor, an author, and a top 100 podcast host. So Rachel is going to talk about branding and marketing frameworks for the future for NFT creators. So welcome, Rachel.
It's not working? Is it now? Do I have to? Oh, I have to yell. Hi, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome. My name is Rachel Wilkins. I am an artist before I am anything else. I've been an artist since I could pick up a pencil. But I'm also the founder of Conception Arts, which is an organization that has worked with over 5,000 artists in 14 cities around the United States. I'm the founder of Renegade Marketing, which is a Web3 native marketing agency. So over the years, working with over 5,000 artists and being on various sides of the art world, I would consider a pretty unique experience. I've been able to see the art world from all perspectives. And unfortunately, I have seen a lot of the problems illuminated right in front of me. Problems like lack of access, inequity, opportunities going to a limited number of people. And so, seeing that inequity, I wanted to do something that would change the paradigm. And that's why we started Conception Events. We worked with predominantly artists that were unrepresented. Now, when the pandemic happened, obviously, terribly tragic time for everybody, but also with that isolation, that time that we spent really just in our homes, came a lot of innovation. Really, I think it was the catalyst to us being where we are right now, standing in this room, talking about non-fungible tokens, right? Who would have thought it, that we'd be talking about digital artwork? And so the problems were illuminated, but at the same time, we were noticing a new creator economy where, again, the paradigm was challenged away from the traditional art world. So we were seeing artists building businesses on Instagram, artists making 6, 7, even 8 figures, selling directly to consumers through Instagram, which was great, right? It's a new economy, everybody's got access to Instagram, but it came with, of course, one major flaw, and that is that they, Instagram, Meta, Facebook, Mr. Zuckerberg, own our data. And the problem with that is, of course, that one day we could log into our Instagram account after spending years developing our business and no longer have access to our collectors, or no longer have access to the fans that we've been building up as creatives. And that would be extremely problematic. In March 2021, I interviewed the art critic, the editor-in-chief of Art News. His name is Ben Davis. I can say it out loud because he will agree with what I'm going to tell you. When I interviewed him in March 2021, and I asked him about NFTs, he said, NFTs are like Beanie Babies. They will not be here in a year's time. Fast forward a year later, and Mr. Davis, I turned on my television recently, and there was Mr. Davis on CNBC, or one of the major news institutions in the US, talking about NFTs as an NFT expert. So that tells us everything we need to know about where the traditional art world stands right now. It was essentially get on board or die, get on board or get left behind. And of course, now we see Christie's, we see Sotheby's, we see major institutions and museums making NFTs part of their programming. So we're in this evolving ecosystem right now. How do we, well, first of all, how many artists do we have in the room? Who's a creator? Pretty much about 50% of the room. So we're in this amazing evolving ecosystem, and we saw just this week that Instagram is now essentially an NFT marketplace. You can make, not mint, NFTs on Instagram's platform. Of course, the nice change of language there to help people come in and on board. Again, this is an opportunity where we're going to see thousands, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people begin to, what do we say, red pill or blue pill? Red pill, thank you. into this renaissance, this digital renaissance that we find ourselves in. So as that starts to happen, how do we as creatives stand out? How do we stay relevant? And how do we stay agile in an ever-evolving ecosystem? Well, we're here to talk about marketing and branding, but we cannot talk about any of those things without talking about pricing. This is something that I field questions from artists all of the time. Shouldn't I price lower? Shouldn't I make my work more accessible? My answer is no. We want to be pricing for longevity, not a quick flip. We are not PFP projects. We are building legacy on the blockchain. These items, these NFTs, these digital assets will be there forever, right? So when we talk about pricing, whether we like it or not, pricing influences perception. People perceive what something is worth. There was a study in Napa Valley, of course famous for its wine, where they gathered 20 wine lovers, and they put 5 bottles of wine in front of these wine lovers. Bottle 1, they were told, was a $10 bottle of wine. Bottle 2, $25, bottle 3, $35, so on, with the most expensive, bottle 5, being $95. 85% of the people in that study rated bottle number 5 as the best. But there is a twist. Bottle number 5, bottle number 1, and bottle number 3 were all the same wine. So what does that tell people? It tells us that if you see something priced at a higher price, you automatically perceive that it's more valuable. So the reverse of that is, if your work is priced low, what is wrong with it? People will start to poke holes. They may find holes. They'll find reasons as to why that work is so cheap. So, branding. When we talk about branding, often people think logos, colors, fonts, that's branding. It is in some circumstances, yes, but branding is much more than that. Branding is about your values. It's about your narrative. It's about what you're putting out in the social economy that we have today. A friend, Cynthia Johnson, she's a branding expert in LA. If you're not following her, please do. She's amazing. She compares branding to credit. In the US, everybody has a credit score, right? It's a number that kind of guides how much money you are given. And most of us know what our credit score is, right? At any given time when we go to apply for finance, whether that's for a home loan or a car loan, we know what number is going to be discovered. We generally have an idea because we've usually done some work to make that number what it is. The same thing applies for your art business and for your brand. At any given time, somebody is Googling you, or whatever technology we're going to have that's not Google in a couple of years. Somebody is looking you up for opportunities, to check your credibility, potentially to give you money in some capacity, maybe it's a grant. So we need to make sure that we are controlling the narrative, and we're making sure that what those people find, same as those credit searchers would, is what we want to tell. I always say, for example, we don't want our old MySpace page or our, our teenage job where we worked at McDonald's to show up in our search if we're trying to get in front of our collectors. So just being conscious and doing an audit of your own kind of digital footprint is essential for good branding. So we can't really talk about marketing in Web3 without talking about human beings, right? Web 2 is kind of a marketing shit show. Let's be real. I can curse, there's no children, right? Web 2 became data-driven, money-driven, ads, clicks, all of those things. And I am not naive enough to think that that is not coming. We know the big tech advertisers are coming. But I had a client in February who came to me and said, I was a Web 2 client, I want to come into Web 3. Can I just give you $100,000 to spend on Facebook ads and then do an NFT drop? And I said, you may as well take that $100,000 and throw it in the Hudson River and go show up on a couple of Twitter spaces. It will be much more effective. Now, that's an extreme example. Obviously, there's better things he could have done with that $100,000. The real takeaway here is that marketing in Web3 requires humanity. It requires us to be humans. It requires us to get deeper and more intimate with the people that we meet at these conferences, with the people that we meet in Twitter Spaces. And I like to say that the building in the NFT space comes with a side order of friendship. And I don't say that lightly. I don't know about you, but a lot of the connections that I've made in Twitter Spaces, in Clubhouse rooms, a lot of those people are true friends today. And they're part of my circle, and they advocate for me consistently, and I do for them. This is a very crucial and important part of the marketing story that we're going to be telling. So I don't have a huge amount of time, that's ticking away over there. I also want to challenge you to remove the moniker of collectors. I hear constantly in this space, collectors, collectors, collectors. Like there's a magical group of collectors that hang out somewhere in their own little club, ready to come buy from us. Newsflash, they don't. There's no such thing, and there's no such thing in the real art world either. There are people who are passionate about your work or about your work, right? It's our job to get in front of those people. We want to build relationships. We want to remove the hierarchy and start to think of collectors as fellow humans, fellow collaborators, fellow builders, friends, dare I say it, right? And so the other thing we cannot not talk about in Web3 marketing is social audio. I don't think that any of us would be here today were it not for Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces. It was the epicenter of everything that we've been doing here in Web3. So social audio should be in your toolkit and as kind of one of your best weapons that you have. Now, I get it. It's not always easy to come into a Twitter space and talk about your work. Shilling is the worst. I want to remove that word from the Web3 economy altogether. But becoming a good storyteller is not difficult. In fact, it is in our DNA. We are, as human beings, natural storytellers. Now, look, I am an introvert and I'm up here. I was nervous as hell backstage. But I've learned the power of story. I've learned that by telling stories, you can relate. You can be relatable to other people. So learning to tell your story well and practicing that with people that you love, and then going into Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse rooms with people that you trust and getting really good at it, honing that craft, is going to carry you in this economy. Now, I don't love that this space is really geared towards extroverts, right? We are going to have to do better. We are going to have to find better ways for neurodivergent people, for introverts to tell their stories too. But for right now, focusing on your story is vital. So what other ways, I am running out of time, so I'm going to scoot right through this, but what other ways can we market? I just want to leave you with this. Rather than focusing on the big picture and all of the collectors, that fictitious group of people that we like to imagine, focus on 5 people. It is much more effective to have 5 superfans than 1,000 followers, right? Get to know 5 collectors. Get to know them really well. They'll become your ambassadors. They'll become your advocates, and build alongside them. We need to build for the future. We need to build for longevity. And I just want to leave you with one thing. When I ask my students at the New Museum in New York what they think of when they hear the word selling or marketing, the reactions I get are sleazy, gross, used car salesman. What does that do? It projects that energy. Think about a time when you've sold your artwork. What was the reaction? Joy, happiness. The person who buys that artwork from you, it's a happy reaction. So selling art is an act of love. Thank you.